Now this is Tennessee Lee, and you're watching Wrestling with Regret.
Okay, folks, I'm about to drop a hot take. Quite possibly the hottest take I've ever dropped. Are you ready? Here goes. Racial stereotypes are bad. Yeah, that's why you come to this channel. Them hot takes. The entire foundation of wrestling today seems to have been built on the backs of crude stereotypes, often of a racial nature, designed specifically to get heat. Some of the biggest examples come in the form of dirty, dastardly heels from foreign lands like Fritz von Erich, Mr. Fuji, the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, Umaga, right on up to the current WWE champion who hails from Canada. But there's a reason we still have lots of racially charged stereotypes in our wrestling. It works. I mean, yeah, a lot of fans might turn up their noses to such pithy, one-dimensional storytelling, but live crowds, like it or not, have, do, and will always react to it. Well, except for the gang wars. Nobody liked that shit. Now, it's easy for heels to get their negative stereotypes over, but it always fascinates me when babyfaces do the same thing. These are characters meant to portray races, ethnicities, and cultures at what some would say their lowest level, yet in spite of this, fans still go nuts over it. So this week, allow me, a sheltered white man, to talk about some times that racial stereotypes got over. Before we begin, I'm not going to talk about the times when DX and Roddy Piper cut promos while in blackface, because even though those went over huge, forget stereotypes, that's just some racist shit. Now, when you think Native American wrestler, what pops into your mind? Some combination of headdress, tomahawk, war paint? Well, of course you'd think that, because hey, if they weren't wearing that stuff, then gosh, how would anyone know they're Native American? Wahoo McDaniel, Don Eagle, Tatanka. Except for the Briscoes, nearly every major Native American wrestlers come out dressed in full regalia, and while I think it's a perfectly fine way to honor your heritage, surely it's possible to have a native background and not have to resort to that, right? It just comes off as cliche in my opinion. One of the most famous examples of a Native American wrestler wasn't even part of the culture. Joseph Scarpa, better known as Chief Jay Strongbow, wrestled for the last 15 years of his career as a champion of natives, despite the fact he was an Italian and didn't have 1 ounce of native blood in him. But that didn't matter, as he became one of the biggest stars Vince McMahon Sr. ever had. Once he went on the warpath, fans went ballistic, in a good way. He even won the WWF tag titles on 2 separate occasions with his kayfabe brother Jules, who actually is native. Mamma mia, that's a spicy appropriation!
Mírame los ojos cuando digas mi nombre. No me confrontes si no eres un hombre.
Hispanic wrestlers have had their share of stereotyping over the decades. More often than not, they've been portrayed as thugs or matadors. But in 2005, things took an interesting turn when the Mexicools debuted on SmackDown. Dressed in jumpsuits and driving a giant lawnmower, Juventud Guerrera, Psychosis, and Super Crazy interrupted a match between Paul London and Chavo Guerrero. Though it was kind of alarming at first to see what looked to be a Mexican groundskeeper gimmick, turns out it was supposed to be ironic, I guess.
We're tired to be working for you. Now you gringos are gonna be working for us.
To solidify their statement that they wouldn't be mowing lawns anymore, they came down to the ring riding lawnmowers every week. So they're combating the stereotype by embracing it? That's some next level shit. Bippity boopity. I'm sick of being treated like a cheap stereotype. I'm gonna show all you stronzos what Italians are really made of. I'm gonna eat a spaghetti, the parmesan, the fettuccine, and you're gonna watch me and you're gonna like it. Now, where's my Indian headdress? Wahoo! But I'll be damned, the Mexicools and their Juan Deers were received well by the fans. They fought with the full-blooded Italians for several months, which resulted in Juvi winning the Cruiserweight title from Nunzio, and they also fought over the tag titles with Eminem. Eventually, Juvi and Psychosis would leave the company, leaving only Super Crazy riding that lawnmower all by his lonesome. But by embracing the stereotype and claiming it as their own, it got them all over in a big way in the mid-2000s.
Viva la raza!
My God, was there a more popular tag team in WWE in the early 2000s than Los Guerreros? The natural chemistry of Eddie and Chavo Jr. was off the charts, and it was reflected in how they cut promos and how they wrestled. The whole lie, cheat, and steal gimmick was over like Rover, and it all began with a series of vignettes the two filmed in 2002. Speaking with exaggerated accents, the two traipsed through Beverly Hills with reckless abandon, bilking preppy white people for all they were worth.
Hey, what time is it? Oh, wait a minute. Here, hold that for me.
The
What else you got?
keys.
Come on. Oh. Give me that.
As time went on and the Guerreros split, Eddie retained a lot of the elements seen in those vignettes to tremendous success. Even as a contender for the WWE title, he was still pickpocketing people.
Guerrero. Guerrero! Guerrero!
Tell me again how this is fine, but foreign heel characters are a bad thing. Debuting in 2006, Jimmy Wang Yang was actually a refreshing take on how Asians are portrayed in wrestling. Historically, most people who hail from the Far East have been depicted as some kind of gross caricature. Even Yang's first gimmick in WWE was a thinly veiled take on the Yakuza, but his repackaging as ya boy broke that stereotypical mold and was met with a lot of positive response by fans. However, in bucking one stereotype, he wound up promoting another one, the redneck. Ah yes, rednecks. Cowboy hat wearing, tobacco spitting, rough and tumble brawlers with a southern drawl. To many who live outside the US, this is the default American. Now that I think about it, this is pretty much the Irish equivalent. But I'm not hating on it. Wrestling has always appealed to the common man, the blue-collar types who just want to see some fighting on a Friday night. Cowboys and rednecks have long been a staple in American wrestling, so it makes sense that fans will want to gravitate to them. Haystacks Calhoun, Dick Murdoch, Stan Hansen, The Funks, Tracy Smothers, Hillbilly Jim, The Godwins, Jamie Noble, and more. If the gimmick's neck is red, fans will get behind them more often than not. But this next example is what happens when that stereotype gets over by accident. In June of 1999, WCW created the West Texas Rednecks, comprised of Barry and Kendall Windham, Bobby Duncombe Jr., and Texas's favorite Minnesotan son, Kurt Hennig. The four led an anti-rap campaign in WCW, producing some so bad they're good songs like Good Old Boys and I Hate Rap, the latter of which actually got radio play.
There's only one thing that I hate, 'cause it's a bunch of crap. I hate rap.
Jimmy Hart, one of the most gifted songwriters of our time. Somehow these cheesy numbers got the group over, just in time for their first big feud against the No Limit Soldiers, a team headed up by rapper Master P. Well, in spirit at least, as P only appeared once on live TV. The Soldiers were meant to be the babyfaces here, despite the fact they outnumbered the Rednecks by about 2-1, and would often engage in more heelish tactics than the designated heels. Throw in the fact that WCW had a traditionally Southern audience, and you had yourselves a double turn, though on a far less dramatic level than, say, Bret and Austin. Instead of WCW just rolling with the idea of a stable of babyface rednecks, the feud was quietly dropped and the team kept fighting with other babyface teams until they split that fall, but not before adding Virgil to the group as Curly Bill. Virgil, the kiss of death for WCW staples. And speaking of black people, in 1998, as the Nation of Domination began to come apart at the seams, the Ultimate Fighting Machine, Kama Mustafa, inexplicably morphed into a street pimp. That was weird enough of a transition, but as time went on, the Godfather got more over with the crowd, which I suppose is easy to do when you come to the ring with a throng of strippers and the occasional female wrestler. By the end of his run in WWE, the Godfather had morphed into one of the loudest, most colorful characters of the Attitude Era. Pimping may not be the best portrayal of black people, but Charles Wright genuinely loved the gimmick. You could see it when he performed, and that joy he felt obviously radiated out to fans all over the world. And then,
Yo, 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 yo! Pop a 40 and check your rollies. It's crime time!
honestly, I am shocked as hell that Crime Time got as popular as they did. I mean, honestly, how could they have been seen as babyfaces when they were doing this stuff?
We'll get the hell out the car. And say good.
Homeboy thought he was going to sell a smoothie. The only thing smooth here is how Crime Time removes the money. They realized what was slowing him down. His wallet.
This is Los Guerreros on steroids. It's the exact same idea as the vignettes with Eddie and Chavo, but shit, at least that stuff looked playful. This came off as angrier and more intense.
Damn. White boy got straight up laid out.
The corny old white guy narration was meant to take the edge off, but man, it's shocking as hell to go back and look at this now. If the PG era began 2 years earlier, this gimmick would never have happened. Now, I've tried to be careful in avoiding calling everything in this review racist, because not everything here truly is. But come on, this is pretty racist. This is how a publicly traded, multi-million-dollar company chose to portray a pair of black men in 2006. And yes, I understand the basic concept of Crime Time was created by the wrestlers themselves, but still, the company gave the okay with this? They thought this would make sense to have them cast as the heroes? I'm still shocked. Yet Shad and JTG would get some of the loudest reactions every Monday night. So what if they're self-admitted criminals? They were a fast-paced, dynamic team, and they had a catchy chant.
Money, money, yeah, yeah, money, yeah, yeah,
Though they never got to hold tag team gold despite being #1 contenders for what felt like forever, Crime Time was one of the most overacted in WWE during that time period. That is, until Shawn Michaels took the piss out of their gimmick.
We gotta get back in the hills and see the shizzle, you know what I'm saying, dog? But we need a deuce down low. We need a deuce down low. Down low, brother. Down low, baby. Down low, yo, baby.
Yeah, hard to come back after that one. Any other examples of popular stereotypes I might have missed? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.